This is Blenderstyle, the show where we discuss a blend of heavy and extreme music. On this episode, Enslaved, RIITIIR. This was released 2012 on Nuclear Blast Records. Cheers, gentlemen.
Cheers, boys.
This is my pick. I'm not a big Enslaved fan, but I did get into this album, and I wanted to see what you guys thought. Casey, are you familiar with Enslaved at all?
Negative. I have never heard Enslaved.
Nate definitely has heard Enslaved.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I've never heard them. I thought they were pretty good.
This is they're a black metal band.
Yeah, originally started out, as you would say, true black metal, I guess you would say.
Right, and then it kind of turned. So let's talk about what this sounds like. I would call this progressive black metal, if that's a thing.
I would definitely agree.
So I read that they were more considered an extreme metal band, but at the same time, I'm with you guys. I think I wrote on here I consider them more of a extreme prog metal band, at least based on this album.
Prog.
So the people that are saying this is extreme metal or black metal elitists, who are like, no, it's not true black metal.
They're not in our genre.
So they're like, they gotta call it extreme metal because that's the other catch-all. But there's also some like Viking metal things going on here. Like, this isn't super heavy black metal. It's pretty light for black metal.
It is.
I would say that Enslaved has and always will have some type of, Norse mythology going along with it.
Okay.
I mean, probably almost every album has it.
RIITIIR
if
sounds...
not all albums.
The word RIITIIR, RIITIIR, sounds like Norse to me.
Mm-hmm.
Not knowing anything about Norse.
Well, and the stylized is the reverse R on the back end anyway.
Totally. So
and
it's
on the album, it's written in runes
Mm-hmm.
and stuff. So
it has like that black metal element. The vocals aren't shrieky black metal though. He's kind of doing like a more Viking metal, more like a Mon Amarth kind of guttural.
It's
very
growly
unique.
Almost.
It's very unique to Enslaved, to this sound.
There's like three different styles going on this. So they got the really like demonic kind of sounding, screechy, not really screechy,
like a little amp.
Yeah, almost. And then they got the really good unclean.
The clean vocals.
No, the unclean, when he does his where he opens up his vocal cords and lets it go, is amazing. And then,
these are two different guys as well.
Are they?
Doing the vocal parts on this?
Yeah, the cleans are the keyboard is synthesizer,
mm-hmm.
and then the growls and the screams or the guttural vocals are from the bass player, which is also an original member of Enslaved.
Okay.
So the guy that's actually doing the clean vocals and stuff is not, an original member.
Okay, so
interesting. Okay.
So the guy that does the growls and then the kind of, I guess you could say, the demon voice kind of, like the golem voice.
He's kind of doing like a little.
He that's the same person.
Yes.
Okay, so when he does his, where he opens up and does just the unclean, where he's almost singing, as compared to doing that kind of really screechy, sounds like he's clawing his way out of hell voice. He is really, really good when he does that. I think it's 100 times better when he does those vocals than when he does his super screechy, just because when he's doing his unclean kind of screechy thing going on, he sounds like he's forcing it really hard.
Interesting. Like
a lot of the words don't line up with the structure of the music.
Well, speaking of structure, so one of the things about this album is like the song arrangements are really complex.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not complex like what they're playing, I don't feel like, but the arrangements that they're doing. These are long songs. They're fucking long as shit.
They're ridiculous. I think we're at 8 tracks, 67 minutes.
Exactly, yeah.
When you sent that the other day, talk about long albums, you're like, oh, it's over an hour long. I was like, no way, dude.
This album's over an hour. It's 67 minutes.
It doesn't feel like it's over an hour.
Well, so then what do we like about this album?
So for me, I really like that it's a journey. It's over an hour. It takes a long time to get it, and there's lots of twists and turns.
So I like the mix of heavy and clean. The breaks. The ambient background does like this really cool kind of thing.
I really like that the song arrangements are complex as shit. That's where like the meat of this is that it's...
This has that System of a Down kind of change-up feel, but without being System of a Downy.
Man, that's good.
Yeah.
It's like System of a Down, but like 3 times as long.
It 3 times as long, and I honestly think 3 times as technical.
So they're making left turns.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you slowed down System of a Down and like multiplied everything they're doing, so it's longer.
It made it dirty and grindy.
And black metal.
Yes, that would be this.
Oh fuck, bro, that's so accurate.
Yeah.
Well, some of my likes is some of the more like epic parts that these guys can portray. Like, I mean, honestly, some of this stuff is just
It's real big sounding and
chest beating, even at sometimes emotional. So I would agree with you that it's definitely up and down.
there's so much going on here. They cover.
Yeah.
They do a lot of different metal in here.
Yeah.
Right. It's not super experimental. They're still in that pocket. It still has that progressive, somewhat Viking black metal feel, but they like dabble in different kind of areas here a little bit.
Yeah, and they never go super like heavy.
It's never too hard.
No.
It's easy to listen to.
It is.
Yeah.
Even when the heavier parts hit, it's super.
It like works.
Yeah, it's like kind of a mellow heavy. It's something you would listen to when you're just kind of hanging out, chilling. It's heavy. It's grindy. The rhythm section on this whole album is amazing.
On rhythm, yes.
Yes, the
Yes,
whole
yes.
rhythm section. And then they layer these guitars, like with some clean guitars behind the distorted guitars and stuff, and they do a great job with it. And then there's some really cool parts where they do the cleaner vocals with the kind of screechy vocals, but push way to the back of the mix.
Yes, and they layer them.
Yeah, and I
like Deicide does.
Yeah, and I didn't
good.
notice it until I listened to it with headphones on. And then they do this really cool left-right play with it, where like the screechy vocals in one side.
This
and
is
the cleans
definitely
in
an
the other.
album that you need to listen to on good speakers.
Like honestly, this
or
album was like
headphones.
100 times better once I put headphones on it.
The production's really, really good
It
on
was.
this.
Enslaved's production and like the recording and stuff that they've done, even like a couple albums before this, I mean, they gradually have gotten better, you know? And I think this is an album that they really took themselves very seriously, which I like. And I really think they were venturing out even more. So I think every album that they've come out with, they've ventured out and ventured out, which I love
Yes.
because it actually takes some balls, especially within the genre of what they've done. I mean, this is like their 12th album, and albums before this, I mean, it's black metal, you know?
So,
and then even before this, they started doing more prog. And these guys are like big fans of Rush and stuff. Like, and this
shows.
is where this is showing, you know, and that's what I love about it too. It's their take of like a heavier Rush, if you ask me.
and they do a great job of it.
Oh yeah, and then what I love also is the keyboards that come in when things change, you know, like not just one little
It's not
aspect
sprinkling on top.
Yeah, it's everything changes within the song. You know, most songs are 8 minutes long, if not longer. I love that the clean vocals and the growls and the guttural vocals actually work very well together. Like, they're not even off-putting. It's like, you guys didn't even notice that necessarily it was even 2 different singers. You know what I mean? That's how well that these vocals mesh well together.
It does sound like one dude. Like, they're complete, like Casey's saying, there's like 3 vocals going on here.
3 vocal
styles, but it sounds, it works all together.
Yeah.
It does.
I'm not sure on this album, but I know on other albums, especially newer albums, their drummer also sings.
Yeah,
So
I
there's
saw
like
that. I think on this one it put him as doing some backup vocals on it.
That makes sense.
For the
too.
record, I hate that.
Just
When a
because you
drummer
can't
does-
sing and you can't drum at the same time.
Shut up, Casey.
So Nate, you're familiar with Enslaved as you've listened to him before. Is this kind of their style throughout their whole
Yeah,
career,
good
or
question.
do they change up a lot?
Oh, this is a drastic change.
Okay. Because I want to cut you off. Sorry, but
No, you're good.
because I read that this was probably up until this point in time was their most successful album.
Really?
Yeah.
You also have to take into consideration it's their 12th album. And when you do something for a very long time and you're very persistent and you get better at your craft, you will get noticed.
Well, but
This
to touch on what you're saying though, you said this was a drastic change from their last ones, and it became kind of their most popular album at the time. Do you think that was because they changed it up, or do you think it's because they were just persistent? And even though it's a change up from their original style, they bring enough of their old kind of style into it, mixed with the new stuff?
I would say it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
I mean, obviously the cleaner vocals and stuff bring more of an outside crowd, I guess you would say, even, you know what I mean?
Okay.
And like you guys said, also with both vocals, you never at any time where you're like, this is too extreme.
It's not extreme
it's
at
not
all.
extreme, and I feel like many people, I think this is more accessible to a bigger crowd.
Yeah.
You don't need to be a niche, fan. Like
Well-
before with the black metal,
Well,
Yeah.
that's the thing. A lot of black metal bands do that really high-pitched, screechy, almost kind of like how Danny Filth does in the early.
It's like
early
abrasive
this
and
guy
hard.
never has done vocals like that
No,
either.
and even when he does that really screechy kind of demonic sounding golem voice thing, it's understandable. He enunciates like properly. You could understand what he's saying, and it's actually really good. The only complaint I had about it was the fact that a lot of times it seems like he's forcing it so much that he kind of misses cues or timing cues and stuff based off the music. So this band does this really cool thing that I noticed when they go into their kind of choruses, when they go to their clean vocals, where the guitars and the bass and the drums step back and they kind of do this thing like Paw does, where they go like to this ambient kind of guitar sound where they're not necessarily playing anything technical. It's kind of this ambient, open
They kind of like ride it for a little bit.
Yeah, they ride it. And they
It's
have
very
like this,
open.
It's
I
like a
would
tone
agree.
almost. And so they have like this tone going on behind them, and then the clean vocals come over, and it's actually really cool.
Oh, that's a good observation. So instead of doing like some massive fill into that part,
Yeah.
they kind of let it ride. And
Yeah,
then
they let it ride out, and they kind of leave it open. And
That's true.
Paw did this really well. Like every time Mark went into like his clean vocals, I think.
So
it was,
Paw's a band that Casey's into that no one's heard of. That we'll
Grant,
cover on this
No,
show,
Paw
I'm
is
sure.
great. I
yeah,
mean,
but Grant
we've
always.
heard of Paw.
I think it
would
was
say.
Grant. I think Peter or Grant was.
No
there.
one knows who these people are.
They were whoever the guitar. I think it was Grant was the guitar player. So he would go to these open chord, like kind of strumming open chord with like no distortion, clean kind of steel guitar sounding thing going on, and then just let the vocals kind of ride forefront on it. And they do that a lot in this album when they go to clean vocals, and it's really cool.
There's not much like crazy gain or distortion on any of this album though. And then when it does die down, I agree with you. It's like
It makes
more
the transitions really smooth.
They do a really good job with the transitions, because going from something like that to like that, like you said, that black metal kind of feel, it's hard to do.
It is, and this, it's easy to listen to, but it's still really challenging.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is not easy
agree.
to listen to, but it's easy to, like, you can jump anywhere in this album, and it's going to sound pleasing, but, like, the song arrangements are so complex, it's, like, a lot to take in. It's like eating a big, meaty sandwich.
But also, if you put this whole album in a solid, like you always send us those YouTube videos of, like, the whole album playthrough, if you put this on a YouTube playthrough of the whole album, you could skip around in it, and it doesn't sound the same at any point.
Not really, no. It's the same band, clearly.
It
It's
is.
like a consistent sound.
But they don't reuse stuff. They don't recycle.
I feel like this album actually, what I really didn't like too much about it was that I felt like it was really good ideas
Mhm.
executed at one point, and then they were like, okay, we can falter and we can go into this now, and then we'll play this part like 2 minutes longer than we should even play it.
Mhm.
I think there was great ideas, and like how you said, like how they made the songs work. I mean, the album works, but if you really listen to the songs, I mean, the heavy parts in the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
it goes, it's
kind of predictable.
exactly.
But it's also...
Well, it's not predictable. It's also at the same time because I think it's like, oh, we got this really good part,
Well,
and then we could just.
Well, so to touch on what you're saying is, so like the song "Roots of the Mountain," that intro, they play that too much. I think that was drug out too long, because that song is really, really good. Once
It
you
feels like they're
It's one
dragging
of my
out-
favorite songs, actually.
and it is, and it's so good. But I think I feel like it's drugged down because of that intro, and then at the very end when they go back to it, because I think it's just overdone. I think 5 or 6 measures of it maybe, but I think
This
they did
album is way too long.
It is. And
They could have cut down some of the fat, and this would have made a great record. That's just sorry. That's my opinion.
No, I feel what you're saying on that, but at the same time, like, if you were sitting down to listen to one song, yeah, you're going to be like, this is too long. But if you're letting this play, there's not any point where you're like, oh, I wish this was over yet.
Mm.
But if you're like sitting down listening,
1 hour and 7 minutes is a long time.
for me, this is the songs are too long. It's complex as fuck. Like it's not technical. Like you're not listening to this thinking you're listening to technical guitar playing.
No.
But it's like the songs meander in weird places, and it's like challenging to kind of keep up with it. And you're like, where the fuck is this going?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't be surprised if they just hit record and like recorded some shit randomly.
It almost
and we're
seems like
what
it
it sounds like.
it's
Yeah.
a jam
actually,
session.
we'll learn this after the album's recorded, and then we'll go on tour. And that's why it's a little jumbled for me, because I believe the album that came after this, In Times, is way better.
In Times is a good album.
And it came out in 2015, and I think they started to hone it. And that's what I think about
that's a good
Enslaved. I think
observation.
they're just bringing.
This
they're
is
changing,
experimental,
and
yeah.
they're figuring it out.
They're evolving
and because
as they
like
go.
the last 3 albums, I feel like are great records,
Mhm.
and this one is a little too jumbled for me.
For me, the songwriting is like too avant-garde. Like I just don't get it. Like when I take RIITIIR, the title track, which is under 6 minutes, is great. It's real snappy. It kind of sets the whole tone for the whole album. But the rest of the songs are like 8 minutes plus, and it's just like it's a lot to like. It doesn't. You know what I mean? I don't think of them as like full-blown songs. It just kind of meanders through. And
I just feel like the songs are like, oh hey, that was a cool part, and then like
this is
here's
another cool part.
here's
Yeah.
a part that I'm gonna listen to for way too long. Oh, then there's a cool part, and then it's listen to the song a long too long, and then cool part. So I think they had ideas and didn't know how to execute it. That's my opinion.
So I could see that. Like, if you're listening to this in the back while you're doing something, you're never going to notice the songs are long. Because, like you said, there's enough change
You're
ups.
just not going to notice the song because
Exactly.
I'm washing my dishes and I got to get this
Exactly.
thing up.
But it's going to be
Just kidding.
enjoyable behind in the background or whatever. But
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I can see where you're coming from. Some of the songs are... There's some parts where you're just like, okay, I don't need to hear this part again. Because there is some repetitive stuff where they repeat the chorus too many times or they repeat the verse too many times. And it's exactly the same.
Well, those clean vocals are the same, and there's a lot of clean vocals.
Okay,
So it's not necessarily the music. I think it's sometimes even the vocals just like bring you into this like.
So the clean vocals are great. The kind of guttural vocals that sound like Gollum or whatever. I'm just gonna say it. They suck.
Yeah, and that's what I had on my notes. Like that kind of slowed the whole flow. And I think the black metal elements to this song, where you go into that tremolo picking or that repetitive chord, really kind of stalled the pace of the album. I think the album was great, except for those parts. I think those were the parts where this band faltered.
Like the cleaner, slower parts were good,
Yeah, they were great.
but the heavier parts weren't as good.
Well, and even when they went to the heavier parts where the unclean vocals were opened up and more of a yell and a growl than a frog in your throat. kind of
Cookie
thing.
Monster shit, yeah. Which
yeah.
I hate using that term because that's what people that don't know death metal
that's-
say.
Yeah, like, oh, Cookie Monster vocals. Like,
But he
no.
really sounds kind of cheesy.
He almost sounds like Cookie Monster with a frog in his throat.
Yeah, I don't. I want more like Glenn Benton kind of.
Well, I think his vocals were probably second
Mm-hmm.
to what was going on in the whole album, and the clean vocals. I think
But
he
the
probably went in there and was like.
But so the problem with the real kind of, like you said, the Cookie Monster vocals is that it's only certain parts where he does it so bad that you're just like, I don't want to listen to this anymore. Because there's parts where he does that kind of...
I would agree. There's a couple sour parts where like,
Yeah.
woo!
Sour, well said. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I'm getting at, where he feels like it's kind of rushed, or like he's missing the tone of the thing. I think maybe like you said, like almost like he went in there and he's like, I don't need a backing track. I'll just throw my vocals down first before anything else.
So is this too messy, or is it too pretentious? Like, are they trying to make it sound smart, or is it just like a bunch
I think
of
they're
parts?
trying to pull the wool over your eyes in this. I think they're trying to be like, oh, we're avant-garde. And
But it's just a bunch of parts.
yeah, it's a bunch of parts filled in, but I think it was just a stepping stone for them. Like I said, I think the album after this is amazing, and
So I
Which one is that? The one after?
I think
It's
it's In Times.
Yeah, that one's good. Good
So-
artwork too.
So I have a kind of different opinion because I'm not familiar with the band at all before or after it. And to me, I think it's actually a really good album. Like,
It's definitely a good album. I don't want to shit on it.
So, Casey, what's your rating for Enslaved RIITIIR?
so I gave this album a 3.7 out of 5. I thought it was a solid album. The only part that I didn't like I said, was some of the kind of scratchy Cookie Monster kind of sound and Cookie Monster on Drugs vocal. the demon rising out of hell. I put
Cookie Monster's doing meth.
so I actually put, for an extreme metal band, I'm not sure if you could put them in that category. It's complex with great production and songwriting and structure. The vocals, clean and unclean, are great with great layering. Some of the extreme elements actually slow the pace of the album because it's so good with so many change-ups that I think that kind of drags it out. There's a lot of great vocal and guitar work. The synth and keyboard really pushed more towards a technical progressive metal album, but still with some extreme metal elements.
I think that's a good,
I think that was excellent. I wish you'd memorize it.
Yeah.
So you didn't have to look at the paper.
But didn't even
That's
be like
more
this.
than 4 words. How am I going to memorize
But
that?
it was excellent. I thought that was really good
Yeah.
commentary.
Nate, what was your rating on this?
I give this a 3.2. I think I agree with you. The proggier parts are like somewhat better in this album than other albums that they were trying to push the prog. But I think they probably paid a little too much attention to that. And then the heavier stuff they didn't, and it was kind of like a splash of ideas.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a 3.2. It's a stepping stone. I think in times the next album's better. That's my rating. Matt, what was your rating on this?
I give this a 3.6 out of 5. I think this is really good, but it's a little too lofty and too pretentious, too long.
Way too long.
They're trying to do too much on it, but it is very pleasing and a great album to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
I will definitely listen to this again for sure.
Oh,
Me
yeah,
too.
loved
I
it.
listen to
think
this
it was
all the
pretty
time.
good.
Yeah.
And it actually makes me want to check out the other stuff.
This is Blenderstyle. That was Enslaved. RIITIIR.
Retainer wear?
That's perfect.